Next case comes out of Texas. After a gentleman had kicked in a door of a home in Texas at about 3:30 in the morning, the residents of the home fled out the back door of the home for their own safety, not knowing what the true intentions of the individual who had just kicked in the door were. When the police arrived at the home, they found that nothing in the home had been disturbed, nothing had been taken, and they found the assailant, intruder, in this case, enjoying himself a nice warm bubble bath. He had broken into the home, and his entire intentions was not to really rob them, but he wanted to take a bath. And he was apprehended and arrested and convicted of, burglary, and to also for the damage to the front door of the home. So, not the brightest individual, but at least he's clean. Road rage is real. So this is the case of the banana-wielding psychopath who entered a transit bus and decided that she needed to confront the driver over his erratic bus driving abilities. And so what happened in this case was she entered the bus, and now she's on camera coming on the bus. And there's also a camera, one pointed at the front door, one pointed at the actual driver. And so I've watched the video, but for some reason I can't get it to download. And she entered the bus, started screaming at the bus, and the driver put the bus into park. And there was about 10 people on the bus at this time when she started screaming at him, wailing her arms around with the banana in one hand, and then she jabbed the banana half-eaten into the side of his face, his eye. She got it on his shirt, she got it on his tie, and she also got it on the back of the ear. And she was arrested for simple assault, and she pled no contest and received a $100 fine, along with a lifetime ban from entering any transit bus or being on the grounds of any transit stop. And she did it because she said that he almost hit her car because he was so close to it. And she only entered the bus to confront him about how close he had driven the bus to her car. Turns out she was actually illegally parked in her spot, and where the back end of her car was where the bus was supposed to stop. And the curb there is painted bus stop. It's painted in blue. You're not allowed to park anywhere within that blue area, and the back end of her car was actually in that area. She assaulted the bus driver with the banana. Road rage is real. Somerset, Massachusetts. Quite a few stupid criminal cases that have come out of the state of Massachusetts, and I'm not faulting the entire state, but this one really takes the cake. So a Somerset woman was arrested for breaking and entry and theft, and in this case the police were able to track her pretty easily, and knew exactly who it was, because they had an idea that it was probably her who had broken into the home and had stolen the items from the home. And they were able to actually positively identify that it was her because she was wearing a GPS ankle bracelet for a previous robbery conviction that she was currently out on bond for. And part of that bond was she was to wear an ankle bracelet while she was awaiting trial. Yes, she had multiple convictions for the same thing. And this time she wore the GPS monitoring bracelet to the robbery of another home, and they tracked it from her home into the actual residency, out of the residency, and then back home, and where they did get a warrant and find the possessions from not only that robbery, but they found the possessions from multiple robberies that had occurred in the area. Not the brightest individuals. I don't know what's going on or what's in the water in Massachusetts, but there's something seriously going on out there. Going to Washington State for this next one. Washington State. So Christopher Oxley of Everett, Washington, was and it still is not the brightest of individual. So first off, he stopped going to school in the ninth grade, which is not exactly the best idea to drop out of school that early on in life. And education will definitely do you a lot of good in the long run. So he had been a petty criminal several times, and been caught just about every time he's ever done anything, from what his rap sheet looks like. But he was a petty criminal and a petty drug dealer. He wasn't much of a drug dealer because he wasn't very good at it. But on this case, he was not the brightest individual. So he was in court for a previous robbery conviction, and it was part of the. It was before the sentencing, so he was there to, have his case heard, and then they had break, like a lunch break in between the cases, and then his case was going to come up after lunch. It may have came up beforehand, but he had to stick around anyways. So he's sitting there at the Everett uh, Police Department courthouse. It's all one building there, where the courtroom is. They have three courtrooms, and they have the police department. And he decided that he needed to conduct a little bit of business. So he went to the restroom, sat down on the toilet, and conducted his text messages and stuff like that. When one of his customers called him, and he proceeded to conduct a drug deal over the phone by speaking to the individual, and said that he'd be there in about half an hour with the drugs. But what he didn't realize, since he was sitting on the toilet with the door closed in the stall, was two officers were using the urinals at that time in the men's room and overheard the entire thing. And they waited for him to complete his court case, and then they followed him out, followed him home, and followed him to the actual place where he was going to make the drug transaction. And he was caught while making the actual drug transaction. When he asked the officers how they knew he was going to make that, where he was at and what was going on, they said, "We listened to you there in the courthouse, the police department area, in the bathroom, and we just decided, well, let's follow this and see what happens." Christopher Oxley, get an education, sir. Please. It'll do you a world of good. Now we're going to Middletown, Ohio. Carly Rowe of Middletown, Ohio, was picked up for shoplifting from Dollar General. And she was with her two kids at the time, when she was picked up for shoplifting at the store. They were going to just write her a summons and let her go. But this case was a little bit more bizarre than that. When the officer was writing out the report before he just wrote her a summons to appear in court for the shoplifting conviction, he asked, "What did she steal?" And they handed the officer a plastic bag, and inside of that was a book. And what book was she stealing for Dollar General? Now, keep in mind, this item cost $1. She was stealing the book 101 Ways to Be a Great Mom, with her two kids, both there with her, watching her do this. She was subsequently arrested, convicted, not arrested, but convicted of the crime, because they let her go because they didn't want to have to call in CPS to take her kids away and all that. She was convicted of this, and she was ordered to pay a $150 fine for stealing a $1 book. Next case is out of Utah. So two gentlemen who had broken into a store and no one knew that they were in the store. They were able to disable the alarm system while they were in the store, and pretty much had a free-for-all of the store while they were in there. They spent several hours going through the store looking for the cash or other valuables that could quickly be turned into cash. And they gathered up a bunch of items in pillowcases and were getting ready to exit the store But as they walked by a certain area of the store, one end of the two robbers looked out the window, and they saw someone had broken into their car because both of their car doors were open at the time. They exited the store again, getting away with it, walked out to their car, and threw the items that they had just stolen from the store in the trunk of their car. And they realized that somebody had broken into the car and had stolen their stereo and several other items from inside their car while they were committing the robbery. So what did two criminals do about this? They were robbed while they were robbing. They called the police. The police came to take the report of the stolen stereo and items from the car, and while taking the report, the officer asked the one individual, they separated the two, and they started talking to him, and he asked him, what were you guys doing, in the town at this hour of the night? And the one bright individual of the two said, oh, we were over there at, such and such store. And the officer, knowing that store had been closed since about 6 p.m., and here it is like 11:30 at night, he asked, why were you over at the store? Before he could ever answer, another officer went over to the store and found out that they had broken in and disabled the alarm, and in the contents of the trunk, they found the items that they had stolen from the store. Bright. Next case comes from Minneapolis, Minnesota. So Devin Exas, EXAS, decided that he had a brilliant way to make a lot of money really quick. He went to a business, a local store outside of Minneapolis, where they rented lawn equipment, and he was going to take this lawn equipment underneath the disguise of renting it, and then sell it, and easily make a ton of money by selling the items. So he went to this business with a trailer and said he needed to rent a lawnmower. And several other large pieces of yard equipment, weed whacker, a hedge trimmer, and other items, and he needed them loaded into the trailer. He filled out the rental contract, giving all the right information. Completely filled out the rental application correctly, paid the rental fee deposit, and then went out to the trailer and made sure everything was secure and drove away. The problem came up with the fact that he rented all Snapper equipment. If you don't know what Snapper lawn equipment looks like, it's all very distinguishable. It's red and white. The store that had the rental equipment painted all their equipment blue. When he tried to sell the equipment to make quick cash, he wasn't able to sell any of it. And his entire thing fell apart because he had put up X amount of dollars for a deposit on each and every item that he had rented, and he wasn't even going to be able to make back what he had spent in the rental. So he decided that this is not working out too well. So he placed an ad on Craigslist for lawn equipment for rent, and he was going to rent it out. And when that didn't work through, now the theft took place here, underneath false pretenses took here. He tried to sell it. Now he's trying to rent it. He still can't rent it. And so all these days in between here, he's paying. They have his money. They have his deposit. They have his information. They're calling him, hey, where's our equipment? Bring it back. He finally finds an individual in upstate Minnesota who is interested in buying it all, and they exchange text message back and forth, and he said he agrees that he will drive the equipment up to this individual to sell it all to him. When he gets there, the gentleman's like, why is it all painted blue? And he said, well, it was scratched up and I needed to paint it. And not realizing even at that point that the reason why he couldn't sell it or rent it was because it was blue, and everybody knew in that area knew that blue equipment belonged to this rental company. The individual decided that he would take it all from him because he still needed it for his lake property there in upstate Minnesota. He had, but now he had paid all that money for the deposit. Okay, he paid for and had it all that time. He then used all of his resources trying to rent it and sell it. Now he's paid for the gas to drive it upstate Minnesota. He gets it all, drives back home, pays for the gas to do that. At the end of the day, he made $5, but was quickly arrested when the rental company had the information, and a month later he hadn't returned any phone calls and he didn't return the equipment. He made $5 profit over what he had paid on the deposit to rent the equipment in the first place. He was convicted of theft, and he was given a $3,200 fine from the courts, plus additional fees, and sentenced to 1 year, 6 months in jail. Yes, he has been sent to upstate Minnesota to Stillwater Penitentiary. If you're from the area, you can now find him as an inmate. I don't have his inmate number here in front of me on my notes, but he is in Stillwater Penitentiary. He has a pretty lengthy record, so he's not exactly the brightest individual, and it wasn't something that he was really going to get away with, was it? Mr. Axis. Not very bright.